south, and it was handled poorly. I think everybody's the bad guy here, and if I'm a fan, I'd be livid. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'd be livid as well. It's interesting to me because we want our athletes to be human. We want them to be real. We want them to be honest until they're real, until they're human, until they're honest, and then we're pissed at them, right? And it's always funny to me as a former player. I used to hear this all the time, like, "Hey, man, the field's a sanctuary. I can get away from my problems." Man, the field exacerbates my problems. I want my life to be in perfect unison. I want my home life to be good. I want everything to be good so I can perform at peak efficiency. And, when we show our human side, when we get hurt feelings, when things don't go the way we expect them to, fans are upset about it. Organizations are upset about it. Here's my biggest issue, and there's a lot of things. There's a myriad of different things that have gone on in regards to Aaron Rodgers. People just think they drafted his heir apparent. Well, it's not just that. It's you draft his heir apparent, and then you say, hey, he's totally on board. And he's like, man, I had no idea this was going down, right? There's all kinds of little things. And as little things stack one on top of another, they become a very big thing. And I think that's the real issue here is the lack of communication or what is perceived as just being dishonest. If you're going to bring a player in and say, hey, man, you've earned the right because of your status and because of what you have done, you've earned the right to have an opinion on what we do, and we're going to solicit your opinion, and then you solicit the opinion and you go the exact opposite way of what the guy says, eventually it irritates you, it pisses you off. And I think the biggest thing for me as an organization or as a franchise is that's the position you find yourself in. And as a player, we are always going to side in a locker room with the player. Like we're always going to look at the player situation and say, man, that you can't do that. And we understand that certain guys are elevated. Certain guys have a little bit more leeway than other guys. Certain guys are going to be leaned on more. And Aaron is certainly one of those guys. And for you in the locker room, I mean, that's one of those things you're like, really? You're going to do that to him? You'll do it to every single one of us.
Schlereth, it's interesting because at every level of sports, right, relationships are this bottom line thing that just can't be escaped, whether you're talking about one of the elite quarterbacks in the league or the last guy on the roster. And so that's what continues to echo through this situation. But we talk so much about the Packers side of this thing. Let's go back to the Broncos side of this thing. You've got an organization sort of kind of in purgatory. I know we prepare as if this thing isn't going to go down. But the one thing that Plummer talked about in that article, he talked about the position that it then puts Bridgewater and Locke in. Just take me inside of what it might be like over on that side of this.
Yeah, well, I think if you're Teddy Bridgewater and you're Drew Lock, and you don't know that if Aaron Rodgers walks into the building, he instantly becomes the starting quarterback, then you're living in fantasy land. I think as players we all understand kind of our lot in life. And you understand when a guy like that comes in, you just move aside and you learn whatever you can learn from that guy. It's not that you don't want to compete. It's not that you're not going to try to compete, but you just know the reality of the situation. And I think it's funny. I think that most guys are okay with that. Most people are okay with competing. Most people understand who the better players are, right? That they're going to get the opportunity to play. And so if you're in Denver and you're Drew Lock, would you be disappointed that you're not going to compete? Yeah, but what can you learn from it? And you're 100% right about the relationship aspect of this. I say this all the time, regardless if it's radio, whether it's television, my career in television, my career in radio, my green chili company, just the different things that I have going on right now in life. You're in the relationship business or you're going out of business. And I don't care what business you're in. And if you're not in the relationship business and growing those relationships and taking care of people, and it's not always going to be, perfect. But if you're not doing that, then you're going to struggle. The thing about football that I love is the nature of how you bring 53 guys together and 20 coaches together and all that stuff. And it's hard to do. And if you're not really into it for the team, if you're not willing to sacrifice, if you're not willing to do the hard things, then I don't care how much talent you have, you'll never be good. And so the relational aspect of the game, of any game, becomes the most significant part to me. Yeah, you got to have talent. Everybody's got talent. But it's about how you put that talent together and how you really serve one another. And that's what makes championship organizations. So for Denver, I really believe that he walks through the door and those two quarterbacks going, yeah, we get it. And everybody else in the locker room goes, yeah, we get it. He's Aaron freaking Rodgers.
And in the meantime, though, they are sort of the guys like Monica mentioned, they're kind of in limbo right now at that position. So with that in mind, you trade for a Teddy Bridgewater, and boy, since his injury, how he's sort of now trying to prove that he can still play. I think he certainly can play, but what is he? And then you have Drew Lock, who is somebody you thought was going to be the future for them. So this quarterback competition that they're going to start in 22 days, who's got the edge, and who would you expect to be QB1 in week 1?
Well, I would expect Teddy Bridgewater to win that job, and there's several reasons. I mean, I think you look at Vic Fangio, he's never won a game in September. So if you don't get off to a fast start, if you don't have, consistency from that position, you're going to get fired anyhow. So, coaches love veteran players. Young players, we used to say it all the time when I was playing in Denver, young players will get you fired. And they just don't know. There's still that learning curve that they're going through. So I think that you look at just the tea leaves. They've invested in their defense. They get Von Miller back. Bradley Chubb should be now a year removed from that ACL. He should be healthy and full go. He went to the Pro Bowl last year. In the first 5 or 6 weeks, he wasn't nearly the player he was toward the end of the season. So you would expect him to kind of start off where he ended last year. Von Miller back from that injury. They invested in that defensive secondary. You look at that defensive secondary, not only in the draft, but what they did with Ronald Darby, what they did with Will Fuller. They've got a chance to be really good in that back end. And if you're a coach, you're like, hey, man, our back end is really good. Our defense should be really outstanding. We just need a guy not to turn it over and to make sure that, that he operates the game the way it should be operated. And I think that's Teddy Bridgewater. I still think that Drew Lock has upside, but he has got to learn how to play at the NFL level. And, he comes out of college where they're a complete spread football team. I talked to him about it as I was doing a game for Fox. He's like, man, I never talked one time about protections. We ran 2-man routes, 7-man protections, and we said, let's go. Yeah. And he goes, so I've got to learn protections. I've got to understand where my hots are, how to re-identify a mic, to do all the things that we have to do. And you can see it in his game when you study film, how many times he gets spooked out of the pocket because he doesn't realize the back is coming across the formation to pick up a linebacker that looks like he's not picked up. So there's a lot of little things in football that he doesn't get.
Oh, it's the classic example of a guy who needed time to just, hold the clipboard and learn a little bit, and he was just forced into playing. And, what you were describing is they need a game manager, and, of course, that really is what Teddy Bridgewater has become. We got to leave it right there, Mark. Hey, great perspective as always. Good to talk to you. All the best.
Likewise, all the best to you guys.
All right, Mark Schlereth again on the Goodyear Hotline. That was terrific stuff, by the way, about the quarterback competition in Denver as something to watch. Is maybe they're just space holders until a potential Aaron Rodgers trade, but that still remains to be seen. Keyshawn J. Will Zubin, presented by Progressive Insurance. All right, coming up next, you know what it is. Call a roulette, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. You got a hot take, you got a question, now is your chance. We'll get to that after Monica has this from O'Reilly.
Super Start batteries, exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts, are designed to meet the electrical demands of today's vehicles. Get dependable power and performance from a Super Start battery for your car, truck, motorcycle, lawnmower, boat, and more. What else is more? Scooter? Maybe if you got an electric scooter.
Vespa.
Vespa. Visit O'Reilly Auto Parts today, and their professional parts people can help you find just the right battery for your vehicle. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.